Greetings! It is I, Tantei Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on anime series, reviewing them for you, and then giving you some examples of how you can use them in your BESM games. Suggestions that you can adapt these anime worlds to your BESM games. But let's begin, of course, with the two from this season I do want to talk about, Urara Meirocho, and of course, Eldlive. Let's start with Urara Meirocho. So Meirocho is this town that is known for Urara being there. Urara being basically fortune tellers, each of them specializing in various different mediums that they use to tell the fortunes of people that should visit the town. We focus on Chia, this girl that was effectively raised in the woods, raised around animals. And the fact is, she's come to this town because she has heard this is where she can find her mother. She then ends up becoming an Urara and joining with 3 other trainee Uraras. The 4 of them basically go on a quest or mission as trainees in order to get better, to become a higher ranked Urara, with Chia hoping to one day meet with the basically top one in town who might know something about her mother and can help her find it. But each of them has their own goals in which they're here in order to advance themselves within this community. So I would call it a comedy. There's plenty of funny moments. Chia effectively was raised in the woods, and she kind of acts like she was raised by wolves. She was barely raised by people. She is incredibly ridiculous, and a lot of other comedy things happen as a result to it. Supernatural. They're fortune tellers. They have fortune-telling powers, which they can use. And slice of life, I would call it also. It deals with their daily lives here in Meirocho and the various tasks they have to do in order to prove themselves the next level of Urara. Various little things like that that make it very interesting. I rated it a 4. It was pretty good. It's a pretty good series. It's still ongoing, as I said. It's nice. I would recommend checking it out. Now, if you're using it in a BESM game, I recommend 250 points. You're going to make your characters a group of Urara. They're going to be a bunch of trainees basically there in Meirocho that are being brought together because they're effectively a generation of them that are being brought in together, and it's their job to basically learn how to be an Urara here. They're going to go about their daily lives within the town, basically training, going through tests, going through daily things that maybe you don't think are tests, various little things like that. They're made to make them better Urara in the end, but also strengthening the bonds with each other and basically strengthening their abilities. So it's going to be a little quest line of the various little things within them, making them outside and in and with each other, improving themselves, with a little comedic elements here and there basically built into how the characters are made. Be a little lighthearted to how them. That's what you tell your players. Now let's talk about Eldlive. We focus on Chuta, a middle school student who's always heard this sort of voice in his head that's driven him away from finding friends or bonding with people, because he always thinks that he's kind of crazy. He believes to himself that he can't get rid of this voice. Eventually, though, he meets with a member of Eldlive. They effectively kind of kidnap him into doing it. A member of this space police organization. That's what Eldlive is. And they tell him he qualifies for joining them, that their system for recruiting from the various alien races throughout the galaxy has basically said, this kid has the potential to join them. He finds out that that voice that's deep within him is some kind of symbiotic alien that joined with him many years ago, and effectively can give him the power to overcome the exam, the basically entrance exam to the organization that they had given him. And doing so, he becomes a full-fledged officer in Eldlive. So, this one is in action, of course. He uses the abilities he's given from basically his symbiotic alien to fight against space criminals, along with other officers. It's sci-fi, that's definite. It's got aliens, it's got sci-fi technology of those aliens that are space police. It's got space police. It's also space. As much as it's centered around protecting Earth and the solar system, they do have a big spaceship out in space that they go hang out in, and as their headquarters for the area, and so it definitely revolves around space. Now, I only rate this one a 3. It had some interesting moments to it, and it has an interesting concept, but it just didn't draw me in as much as I think it could have. So if you're using this in a BESM game, I recommend 350 points. You're going to make your characters basically newbie officers within Eldlive. They're more likely going to have a school by day, officer by night kind of thing, as you've seen with a couple of the characters within Eldlive here, that there's some of them that, just like Chuta, going to the school there for various reasons. Now, overall, the reasons behind going to the school are going to be up to your characters. They're all going to have their own history and reasons between why they would join Eldlive. In fact, you can have them basically be more like humanoid aliens or something like Chuta or something else entirely that for some reason they have the abilities, the powers, that in order to qualify for them to be joining with this organization. Then they're going to actually have to balance out a little bit of their daily lives in school, normal kind of lives that maybe isn't always so normal from wherever they come from if they're not human, like Chuta. Or, if they are normal like Chuta, balancing out the fact that they have this other side of their lives. And then, of course, as I said, balancing this other side where they're patrolling, maybe going after various criminals, working together to defeat and capture these criminals in order to protect the safety and sanctity of the solar system. Now let's move on and talk about two from previous seasons. Of course, we're still working from 2015. I got Kantai Collection and Tantei Opera Milky Holmes, which had a series during that time. Let's start with Kantai Collection. Our series focuses on Fubuki, this girl that's new to basically the organization she's going to be joining. In this world, there's this group called the Abyssal Fleet, these monsters that are threatening to basically take over the ocean and basically keep humanity from it. A group of girls has been found to have this power called Kamusu, basically the ability to become ship girls, to be imbued with the spirits of ancient World War I vessels. They all have the same names as these vessels, effectively, and basically be imbued with their spirits and use those to fight against the abyssal ones. Basically gaining a costume that was reminiscent of it with some weaponry, basically reminiscent of that same vessel. So Fubuki is basically a newcomer there, ends up basically being put into one of the various divisions within there, as it's some kind of like naval base where she learns from a lot of the other ones, becomes friends with them, all while battling against the abyssal ones and trying to keep them from basically overtaking that section of the ocean. So genres are, of course, in action. They get into these kind of sea battles with abyssal ones, with the monsters that are at the ocean, and fight against them. I call it a comedy. The action scenes are very juxtaposed with them when they're sort of at base. Some of them are very ridiculous characters in general, and oftentimes they are just comedic also, just because of a lot of things that happen to them. And Fubuki's very new at various things. She's not really great at what she does, so she gets into little mistakes and causes problems, and little comedy things happen with that too. It's also military, though, I would call it, because they are organized like a navy would be organized. They're organized how groups of ships would be. And they have an admiral at charge, so they have a very military feel to it, in amongst everything else. Now, this one of 3. It's a strange concept, and it was interesting. There are some games that it's really based upon, and there's a lot of material that have come out, manga, everything like else. So there's a lot of stuff on Kantai Collection. The one anime series is here, but it's not a bad series overall, just weird. Now, if you're going to use this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 500 points. You're going to make your your characters a group of girls with Kanasu. They're going to have basically their own ships, and each of them are going to be part of a small division within there. You're probably going to want to fill it out with NPCs to come up with this like group ready to basically fight against the abyssal ones. Of course, that's what they're going to do. They're going to be going on missions where they're going to be battling against the abyssal ones. They're also going to have times back at the base where they're training, where they're getting along with each other, where various things are occurring that make a difference. Basically, you're going to have that kind of normal, everyday kind of opportunity where they can bond with each other, learn about their abilities, get better at what they can do. And it's going to be a little more lighthearted. You're going to, of course, juxtapose it with these powerful battle scenes at sea, battling against the various abyssal ones, but you want to balance it out between the two of those, that you don't want to go too far with it. You want a little bit more of that lighthearted time, maybe little silly things happening back at base that give it that moment, to give it the levity that it needs to make it really more of comedy rather than the action-heavy stuff that it kind of juxtaposes with. So the final one I want to talk about today is Tantei Opera Milky Holmes. This focuses on organization in a world in the near future where supernatural powers called toys have awakened in pretty much many people. So there are those that use these toys for criminal and pretty much evil actions, which become the various thieves. And those that fight against them using their powers for society, the detectives. So we meet a group of detectives that are effectively going and learning at this detective academy called Milky Holmes. It's a group of 4 that are fairly elite when we meet them in the original series. They oppose a group of these gentlemen thief called the Thieves' Empire that kind of end up being their rivals very often. Now, there are a number of series. The first couple of them deal with Milky Holmes having problems with their powers, kind of losing them, losing their position as being number one, kind of earning it back. There's another series after that, after those two, that deals with basically another group of girls that are basically learning from Milky Holmes and trying to become detectives in their own right. And there's a final series dealing with them helping out this idol that had a number of powers and trying to regain all of them. So it's a very interesting number of series based around these concept of Milky Holmes. There's a lot of material for it that you can check out. So it's a detective one, of course. They're detectives. It's the easiest way of saying it. Their names are actually based on famous detectives, fictional ones that have existed. Now, it's also a mystery. They do tend to actually end up in mysteries. Not as much as some of the other big mystery series, because they do balance it out with some of the things. Because all the time, more often, it is the Thieves' Empire that's actually causing problems. But they're not the only one. It's also a comedy. They're kind of, in a way, oftentimes incompetent. Not always, but they do actually have problems with themselves that they're not the smartest things, but, you know, they do get the job done oftentimes. Those first couple of series, they show them much more as incompetent. The later ones, they show them as mildly, foolish for various reasons that are funny. Of course, rate this one a 4. It's got some great comedy. I think I enjoy some of the series where they're not, like, losing their powers as more. I'll avoid the one with the sort of second generation group and the one where they're helping out the idol singer, those series a lot more. But still, the first two ones weren't bad. It's just that, like the struggle, and in fact, it felt like it was a plot line that could have gone shorter within the series, and they did milk it for like 2 seasons. So, that's the kind of thing. They milk we're having problems using our powers, they're not always working, sometimes they don't work at all kind of thing. I felt they did that a little long. That's the only reason I probably don't rate this one more, because the comedy is really spot on. As I said, the other 2 series, I like them a lot. I definitely recommend this one. It's very funny. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 300 points. You're going to make your characters a team of detectives. They're going to be going probably to a detective academy, but they could be either an elite team or they could be just a normal team. It's up to you how you want to display your characters within this academy, how good or bad you want to make them. But regardless, they're going to have their own thieves organization they're going to be going after, similar to the Thieves' Empire, something that you can create on your own. And then they're basically going to be using their toys, which again, you're going to allow your players to sort of put together their own toys to oppose this group and solve mysteries. And the fact is, they should act as detectives, going on various things. They might have things within the school that are based in exams and stuff like that, living at the school, dealing with some other students. But when it comes to the detective side, you keep things a little lighthearted. Don't keep it too serious. You're going to want it to still be a little silly, just to keep a little bit of that comedy up all the time. And maybe have your players make their characters very eccentric to make it more interesting that way. So you're going to have some fun while, a little bit of that normal lifestyle, and then some cool detective action with maybe some action battling against their thieves group and trying to stop them from their latest crime that they're trying to commit. Basically, their arch nemesis, so to say, that they're opposing. So that's it for today. I introduced you to 4 more anime series, giving you a little bit of review on each of them and giving you some information, some suggestions on how you might be able to use them in your BESM games. This isn't to say that you couldn't adapt these series to other types of role-playing game systems. That can be done in other of them. It's going to be up to you how much work you want to throw into adapting it to some other system. I'm using, again, BESM because it's pretty easy to use it to adapt a lot of these anime series. But again, maybe you want to use Dungeons & Dragons, maybe Pathfinder, maybe Shadowrun. It's completely up to you. But regardless, if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows support the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.